Welcome back, everyone. I'm Lynn Doyle. Our topic on this edition of It's Your Call, the Wiki Leaks and the fallout that accompanies those leaks. You know, it happened once before, and now there has been a second set of leaks. Is there a real risk to our national security, or, as some say, is it just embarrassing to our country and to the Obama administration? If you want to tell us what you think, you can email me directly at lynn@lynndoyle.net. You can also find us on Facebook, where we have asked this very question and have gotten a tremendous response. Before we get back to our debate, let me share some of those responses with you. Our viewers have had a very rabid reaction to the question whether or not national security should overweigh public right to know. Mark writes, the public does not have the need to know for these documents. It's a shame that these leaks have come out to damage the involved parties. These WikiLeaks could be perceived as espionage, plain and simple. Now, Stephen writes, I know it falls under the First Amendment free speech rights, but there should be some limits when it comes to the security of our country. And finally, Jack has this to say, I have a hard time believing that a private had access to all that classified information. I think he's just a fall guy. And that's where we're going to pick up our debate right now. The question I have for Ed Trzanski is how in the world, whether they have the right or not to release this information, how in the world would a private or anyone else be able to get it to provide it to WikiLeaks?
It's even worse than that, Len, because this is a private who had been reduced in rank once, had twice encountered serious disciplinary problems, all sorts of problems attached to this guy. And I will tell you right now, if in your place of work someone goes in and starts loading down some sort of site they're not supposed to be on and spends a lot of time on it, somewhere the computer server at your company is going to throw up a flag that says,
well, it certainly
look at what this guy's doing.
It does.
Exactly.
No, seriously, I'm not being funny. Honestly,
Sure.
when we go to do research on certain topics,
Once again,
like child molestation or pornography or anything sex on the internet, there is
the
a
private sector
program,
has better security than
there's
our
a
national
program in
government.
effect that actually
Without a doubt.
alerts security people here in the company
So
that says, hey, we're doing this.
More than 600,000 people with security clearances, and more to the point, the government overclassifies security. It takes too many items and makes them classified. If everything's classified, then nothing's classified. And what happens is people take a very lax attitude, and as a result, you've got a 22-year-old problem child who's downloading hundreds of thousands of documents.
Don't shoot the messenger, though. I mean, bottom line, as we were discussing.
He swore an oath.
Bottom line it.
Did he swear an oath, yes or no?
I'm swearing an oath. Let's bottom line it. It says, this is from
This
from
is not him, by the way. This is the founder.
That's another guy they want to go after. But Gates says, some governments deal with us because they fear us, some because they respect us, most because they need us. We are still essentially, as has been said before, the indispensable nation. We continue to be that. So other nations will continue to deal with us. They will continue to work with us. We will continue to share sensitive information with one another. Is this embarrassing? Yes. Is it awkward? Yes. Consequences for U.S. foreign policy? I think fairly modest. Now, there's from your defense secretary. I'm going to take him at his word in that and say it's much ado about nothing. I think he's going to say if it's explosive, he's going to say, look, it's explosive. I think he's right, as we discussed prior to the break, that you have to limit the scope of information available. And as you said, too much is classified, so too many people get their hands on it. That's just poor management. And if nothing else, instead of shooting the messenger, I really think we should go back and look at this and go, you know what? This could lead to something pretty explosive and dangerous, and this isn't it. But by gosh, what we should do is have better managers. And I contend that anytime you have Hillary Clinton and Sarah Palin on the same page on an issue, we're all going to get boned. And that's a bottom line.
That's very droll, but here's the point.
It's very true.
Yeah, it's very droll. Here's the point.
Well, I appreciate it.
You don't have to have unmitigated disaster in order to say, you know, there are a lot of bad things that have come out of
You and I are in agreement on that.
Right. So here's what I'm saying. You had a 22-year-old private, Brian says, well, don't shoot the messenger. No, this man swore an oath, and he decided that he would place himself above the officers and the elected officials who are the ones who decide what gets released and not. What happens to our democracy when the unelected decide what goes into the public record and what doesn't? I think that's pretty dangerous.
That happens every day. That happens every day. The unelected put information into the public record every day. His swearing an oath,
Not government
does it
secrets.
circumnavigate the First Amendment?
Not
no.
government secrets.
Every day. Come on, Ed.
No, I mean,
that's pretty droll, okay?
What? Give me an example. What do you mean every day?
Well, we already mentioned the Pentagon Papers. There's tons of other. I can go to at any day, walk into my sources in state government, federal government, or local government and get information from secretaries and people that are unelected that isn't given to me by people in elected or appointed office. They give it to me because they believe it's right.
Yes, but is this information that's been classified?
This is information that isn't available, yes.
No, wait, no. There's a big difference between not generally
you're
available and classified.
All right, not available, classified, yes. I've gotten documents from investigations. I've got documents from state organizations. They're private investigations. And you get that from your sources all the time.
Look,
from people who want to do right. And if you close up the opportunity for people to give information to the government, then you're in it, and without trying to be droll, then you're in a situation that reminds me an awful lot like Nazi Germany, and it scares me to death that we already have that in this country anyway. The right to speak as you feel free to speak has been impinged upon in this country worse than at any time in my life. And that's a fact. And however you want to debate it, that is an undeniable fact.
Brian, what you've done is painted with this broad brushstroke and said we live in an era of extremes.
And what you want to do is dissect it to pieces so there's nothing left of the First Amendment. It isn't a broad stroke.
It's called prudential treatment.
It's called being. I consider it treason.
During the Second World War, Churchill was asked about this. And he said, in times of war...
Well, let's go back 65 years.
Well, you're talking about Nazi Germany. I'm talking about Churchill.
I'm talking about free speech, and you should not impinge upon it.
And I am saying that free speech is not cost-free, and if it is reckless, it'll lead to loss of life.
Well, that's why you don't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Oh, so there is a restriction on free speech.
Well, that's not free speech. That's pernicious speech. There is a difference.
Yes,
this is letting our elected officials know that they can't get away with the stuff that they'd like to get away with, because we need to know it.
Lynn, the Constitution is not a suicide pact.
Whoever said it was, Ed, seriously.
You are,
no,
right now.
You want to dissect it to pieces and
Brian,
turn
you're
it
saying that
never,
ever, not ever, under any circumstance, can the government withhold information.
They should not be able. Well, how is that? Well, John Adams would agree with you, and of course there was the Sedition Acts, which were overturned.
He's not the only one.
Well,
the Supreme Court has ruled a number of times
for free speech
that there are things that you may not say at certain times, even though they may be true.
And that's what I wanted to ask, Brian. Just because you have the right to do it, sometimes there's the moral question as whether you should do it, whether it hurts more than it actually helps.
And that is a great argument. Unfortunately, I arguing for free speech can't argue for your morality. Your morality is different than mine. Now, you ask me personally what I would do in that situation. I don't know that I would do what the young man did.
Right.
But I cannot argue his morality.
But as a managing editor, would you have published them if they came to you with the information?
Oh, in a heartbeat. Are you kidding?
Heartbeat. All right, so I asked that question to the folks at home. What would you do? If you had classified information, would you share it with your fellow citizens, or would you keep it close to the vest, trying to protect your fellow citizens? That's going to be our topic when we come back, so please stay with us.